This recording will cover part 2 of chapter 6 from your textbook. Remember, chapter 6 is all about classroom management and adolescents with disabilities. So I'm going to pick up where I left off in part 1. So in part 1, we talked about some cues and redirection and ways to redirect those inappropriate behaviors. Some additional methods are extinction, hope it just kind of dies out on its own. Logical consequences, maybe a student doesn't want to sit next to that student anymore because the student's always talking. Oh boy, I'm going to click on something and I hope it doesn't make my recording stop. So fingers crossed, everybody. Oh, phew, thank goodness and gracious. Okay. Sorry about this little plus sign. Okay, well, we're just going to live with it and we will be okay. So we also want to think about differential reinforcement strategies. So there are some different kind of methods of this differential reinforcement. So there's I'm trying to see if it's coming up in the slides. So there's incompatible behaviors, differential reinforcement, incompatible behaviors, other behaviors, or replacement behaviors. So an example for replacement, oh gosh, I feel I'm going to get this wrong. Replacement behavior. Let's say you have a student who says the F word a lot. And no, I do not mean French fries, which would be an appropriate F word to say, especially if you're in my class, but if they say the other F word, let's just say, and you want them to stop saying the F word, right? You would maybe teach them, hey, why don't you say fiddlesticks, right? When they want to say the other F word. So once they start saying fiddlesticks, for example, or a more appropriate, age appropriate term, I tend to say biscuits sometimes because I'm not going to lie, sometimes I have Bluey on for my dog. Yes, for my dog. And so I like to say biscuits. So when they start saying fiddlesticks or biscuits, or, again, whatever an appropriate word is for high school, that's when you would reinforce their behavior. Okay. That is a replacement behavior from them saying the other words. Okay, so those are just kind of some examples of differential reinforcement. Other behaviors would be if they are talking every time you ask them to take out their book or something, and you ask everyone to take out their book and they sit right down and take out their book, and that's when you're going to say, oh, I like how you took out your book, I like how you're ready to go, thanks for being ready. Okay, extinction, discontinuation of a reinforcer that has previously reinforced a behavior. So the teacher needs to identify the reinforcer first. Okay, so again, we talked about this a minute ago. Getting out of the seat is being reinforced by student getting attention, right? You might think it's negative attention, but the student's like, I don't care, it's attention, I'll take it. Okay, so you want to stop reinforcing that behavior, but you also have to make sure that, by you ignoring, perhaps maybe a planned ignoring, where's planned ignoring? If you plan to ignore them while they get out of their seat, you have to make sure that then they are not going to go escalate and start hitting another student so that they do get your attention. Okay. So again, you really need to identify the reinforcer and then stop reinforcing whatever has previously reinforced the behavior. I know it's a lot of words. All right, some self-management strategies. These are really important for students with disabilities, especially adolescents with disabilities. You want to think about there are numerous components, of self-management, self-determination. Give them some opportunities to make choices, right? If it doesn't matter, does it really matter if they use a blue pen or a black pen or a pencil? If it doesn't matter, if the world is not going to stop turning, let them have some choice. That's what I tell my students. I used to have, and again, this was younger students, but I had a student who really liked to stand up and he was not bothering anybody. He would just stand up. And so I moved his desk kind of off to one side and I said, if you want to sit with the group, if you want to sit, you're welcome to come sit with the group. But if you want to stand, just go stand at your desk and make sure you're not blocking anyone else's view. So I gave him, he was like in second grade. I gave him that choice and it solved a lot of our problems. So thinking about what choices, what decisions can they make, right? They're getting to the point, where they want to make their own decisions. So within reason, maybe allow them to do that. Problem solving, goal setting. We've talked about goal setting in terms of transition, stuff like that, especially for this age group. And also, your students can evaluate their own behavior and then they can think about what might be reinforcing to them. Okay, some self-advocacy behavior management model. Again, really, we want the students to be advocates for themselves, right? We do, especially at this age. We want them to be advocates. So maybe giving some type of a weekly grade report, in younger students, it would be, a smiley face, a frowny face, a straight face. But in older students, maybe something a little, not maybe, definitely something a little more appropriate to them. Maybe they can have some student teacher time, one-on-one, where you're focusing on the positives, but then also talking about areas where they might need to improve for the next week or coming up with some new goals, okay? And making any adjustments to goals and strategies that might be necessary. But again, allowing them to kind of say, hey, jelly beans don't motivate me, but here's what motivates me, or something like that, okay? Behavior intervention planning, or BIP. You may have done some work with a BIP before, you may not have, depending on where you are in your courses at Prince Marian. If you have not taken the course that involves a BIP, you will. Some of you I know have already written BIPs out in your own classroom. So some of you know about this and have already been doing it. It is behavior intervention planning is mandated by IDEA. Focus on determining the underlying causes. What is causing the student to behave this way? So that's where you would engage in a functional behavioral assessment and analysis. Sometimes the school psychologist gets involved. Sometimes other teachers. It just kind of depends on the makeup of your school. So you want to think about underlying the behavior, assumptions underlying the behavior intervention plan. It helps to understand the causes first of the behavior and then address the problems. You also want to think about, those positive intervention strategies. Okay, I'm understanding that the cause of this behavior is the student is reading on a second grade level. They're in 10th grade. They don't want to be asked to read aloud, so they are going to engage in some sort of behavior that prevents them from reading aloud, whether it's you kick them out of class, whether it's, oh, forget it, you can just sit quietly, whatever it is, right? But if you understand that, hey, they're reading at a second grade level, they are embarrassed to read out loud in front of their, adolescent peers, then you can start looking at, okay, how am I going to address this problem? That's where those positive intervention strategies come in, and also really utilizing the team approach, including the student at this age, right? Including the student. So behavior intervention plans include specific behavior goals, not just Georgia will behave better. Georgia is my dog. Again, not just Georgia will behave better. What does that actually mean? What is a specific measurable behavior goal? What are some proposed interventions? How are we going to help and support the student to meet those behavior goals? What staff members are responsible, and how are we going to evaluate this goal? Are they making progress? What's our schedule? What's our criteria? Very similar to, or exactly like, non-behavior goals, right? The academic goals and the behavior goals should all be measurable. They should be, clear about who is responsible and about the evaluation methods that will be used. Punishment is definitely the least successful, the least desired method to reduce behaviors. So this is where we apply something unpleasant after an inappropriate behavior. Again, with your older students, especially, punishment is really tricky. I personally would try to avoid it, but again, that's up to you. Some punishments might be, reprimands, and especially at this age, uh, noticeable. That's not the word I'm thinking of, but where you call out a student in front of the whole entire class. That could be seen as really a type of punishment to some of these students. Some students don't care, right? But some of them, it really might embarrass them. They really might not like to be reprimanded in front of their peers. Timeout, again, typically a younger student thing, but that is a form of punishments that is used for older students. And then thinking about just kind of the response cost. Oh, well, you did this, so here's what's going to happen, kind of thing. But we really want to think about the positive focusing on positive behaviors, focusing on a positive classroom environment. I know it's not always going to be all unicorns and roses and flowers, but focus on the positive, focus on what you can change in the environment, and focus on how you're going to create that positive classroom climate. Okay, that is it for chapter 6. I am really hoping that this worked out because I am worried that it did not record correctly. So I guess we will see when I go to play this.